Is a wife responsible for her husband's affair? Well, let's find out. Tonight I'm going to introduce you to my husband, Brian Bircht. We are Brian and Ann Bircht, and together we help smart couples build strong, affair resistant marriages. So, Brian, tell us about that time that guy called our office all mad because his wife had told him that you said his affair was his fault.
Yeah, well, that was pretty interesting. He called pretty upset, pretty mad, telling me that I said that. And I told him he was 100% correct that I did tell his wife that because that's true. And then he goes, "Oh, but if you knew my marriage, you would disagree and you'd never say that." I said, "Oh, well, maybe not. I don't know." So then I says, "But I'm happy to listen to your story." And he kind of he must have had this well rehearsed thought because the way he just spewed out all of this stuff like he'd been waiting for a moment to be able to tell this. It just came. It was so well planned. He just went off and I kind of like was thinking he was a fisherman because the story went from like this bad to like giant. And anyway, I listened to all of that. It was like. And then he goes, "Yeah. So what? Well, what would you do?" And then I kind of said to him, I said, "Well, I says first off, I did ask him. I said, well, what did you do?" And he says, "Well, I told her." I said, "Well, did she listen?" "No." I said, "Well, what did you do after that?" He goes, "Well, I told her again." I said, "Okay, great." And then and I said, "Well, the issue is that if you want to know what I do," I says, first off, I says I would talk to my wife for sure, right? And if she didn't listen, then maybe I'd talk to her again, maybe try a different approach. And then I says, then I would use a bunch of other things, and I says, yeah, I would maybe book a counseling session. I would buy a book, read it, practice some of the stuff, maybe talk to somebody else. Do a number of different things. I says the issue is you tried one thing and you didn't do it, and it didn't work, and then you gave up, and so you think that having an affair is justified because your wife didn't do something you told her the one time, when in fact you should have just tried a few other things. And I know he was a little upset because he hung up right away, all bummed out. But the reality is, nobody can be held responsible for some action they weren't participating in or had agreed to.
We're Brian and Ann. If you agree that affairs are wrong, then put yes in the comments and follow us.